Okay, I have the keys to unlock Pocket Ronnie. Okay, we're going to be doing angles of elevation, and we're looking at 6D2, and these are going to be word problems. So my suggestion is to always draw a picture. We're going to be using trig functions to solve these problems. In other words, we'll be using sine, cosine, or tangent. Anytime you use sine, cosine, or tangent, your triangles have to be a right triangle. So all of these pictures that you draw should be a right triangle if we're going to be using sine, cosine, or tangent. So the key thing is to draw a correct picture from these words. At a point of 60.7 feet from the base of a building, the angle of elevation from that point to the top is 64.75 degrees. How tall is the building? Alright, let me go back. At a point 60.7 feet from the base of a building. Okay, so we have a building. Remember, I'm not the great drawer, so here's my building. Here's the base of the building. Then the problem says at a point 60.7 feet from the base. So there's a point that is 60.7 feet from the base of the building. Okay, so there's that line. That's 60.7 feet from the base of a building. Then it says the angle of elevation from that point to the top of the building is 64.75 degrees. So from this point to the top of the building is 64.75 degrees. So from this point to the top of my building, okay? So I'll draw a line from that. This right here is called the angle of elevation. This is 64.75 degrees. So you can think of angle of elevation. This line right here is like the horizon, and then you are elevating from that point to that line right there. So you're elevating from this line and you're going up 64.75 degrees. So if I want to draw an arrow there, you can think of it like that. So from this line, you're now going up at an angle, elevating up 64.75 degrees. Okay, so then this is the given information that they've given us. Then the question, what is the question asking? How tall is the building? So we're looking for the height of this building. You can label your unknown anything you want to, okay? I'm just going to label it B for building. Okay, so I am looking for how high is that building. So looking at that picture, then I look at what I have. Okay, I have this angle right here. If I'm standing at this angle, then I'm looking for the side opposite of me, and I'm given the side adjacent to me. Which trig function deals with opposite and adjacent? Okay, that would be tangent, because tangent theta equals opposite over adjacent. Okay, so let's fill in what we know. Tangent, well, we know the angle is 64.75 degrees equals opposite, which is B. We don't know that. And then the adjacent side was 60.7 feet. Okay, so now you go get your decimal, your trig function in your calculator. You do tangent of 64.75 degrees, tangent of that, and I'm just going to do it to 4 decimal places. 2.1203 is tangent 64.75 degrees. B over 60.7 feet. Okay, if I want, I can turn this into a fraction, and then I can use cross multiplication to solve. Okay, cross multiplication, 2.1203 times 60.7 feet equals 1 times B, which is B, and then take your tangent of 64.75 degrees, which is that, multiplying it by 60.7, and you get B is the height of the building, 128 point, and I usually take it to 2 decimal places, and then the units that you had on here were feet. See, that's the unit that you had, feet. Be sure and put units. So the height of the building is 128.7 feet. Okay, now we're looking at 6D1. Okay, I'm just going to read the first sentence. A campsite is 12.88 miles from a point directly below Mount Adams. Okay, so we have some mountain. The key is to be able to draw a correct picture from the words. So Mount Adams. we have some sort of mountains. And then here it says that from a point directly below Mount Adams. So there is a point directly below this mountain. I'm just going to go from the peak. So here's the point directly below the mountain. And then it says a campsite is 12.88 miles from the point directly below the mountain. So we have this campsite. There's your campsite. And they said it is 12.88 miles from a point that is directly below the mountain. So this would be your horizontal line. Then the next part says, if the angle of elevation is 15.5 degrees from the camp to the top of the mountain, how high is the mountain? Okay, so basically angle of elevation from the campsite to the top of the mountain. Oh, I drew to that line. To the top of the mountain. Right there. Well, in my world that goes to the top of the mountain. It's not a great drawing. Remember, angle of elevation. Start this horizontal and you're elevating up above. That is your angle of elevation. So this right here is my angle of elevation. That is 15.5 degrees. That is that angle right there. So then it's asking how high is the mountain. They're wanting to know this distance right here, that distance. You can label that whatever you want. This is a right triangle. These pictures should be a right triangle. You can label this unknown whatever you want. I'm going to label it M for mountain. So if I'm standing here at this angle, my unknown is opposite of me. The side that I know is adjacent to me. Opposite and adjacent uses tangent. Tangent theta equals opposite over adjacent. So I can fill in what I know. Tangent, and then my theta is 15.5 degrees. Opposite of me is my unknown, the height of the mountain. Adjacent to me is my 12.88 miles. So then I can just turn this into a fraction. Then I can use cross multiplication. So the first thing I'm going to do is find, I'll just write it like this. Tangent of 15.5 degrees times 12.88 miles equals 1 times m, which is just m. Now I have to put this into my calculator. To 4 decimal places, that is 0.2773 times 12.88 miles. The only units I have left is miles, so that's what's going to be my units. So I'm multiplying this times 12.88. I got that the height of the mountain was 3.57 miles. And normally all of my answers, except for anything that has to do with trig functions, is always to 2 decimal places. Sometimes the book uses 1 decimal place, sometimes I use 2. I always like to do the 2 decimal places, and don't forget your units. Okay, now we're looking at 6C, number 1 and 2. The very first sentence, from a point 120 feet from the base of a church. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So we have from the base of a church. So there's my church. So here's the base of the church. It says from a point 120 feet from the base of a church. So here's my point, and that is 120 feet from the base of my church. Just so you know, we're going to go to the middle line of the building. You'll understand why here in just a minute. So that is 120 feet. So that is going to be my horizontal line right there. Then the next thing says, the angles of elevation of the top of the building and the top of a cross on the building are 38 degrees and 43 degrees respectively. Okay? Respectively means the first thing they said goes with the first number. So the angles of elevation of the top of the building was 38 degrees. Okay? So the angle of elevation to the top of the building right there, that angle of elevation is 38 degrees. That's to the top of the building. Here is my right triangle. Then it also said to the top of a cross on the building. So you also have a cross at the top of the building. So then you also have an angle of elevation to the top of the cross. So you have basically this line right there, and then that angle of elevation is 43 degrees. I know that that's hard to see. Basically what you have is you can draw it as two different pictures, okay? You have a triangle to where you have the top of the church, okay? So this is the top of the church. That's the top of the building. This would be 120 feet. This right here is 38 degrees. And they want to know, one of the questions is find the height of the building. So we're just going to call that B. We're going to call this side B for building. Okay, then you can have another picture to where you have the church, and then you have the top of the cross, and then you're going to the top of the cross. That angle of elevation would be 43 degrees. So if it helps for you to draw two separate pictures to help solve this, then I would recommend doing that, okay? Because they also want to know what is, it says, one of the questions is, find the height to the top of the cross, which is this. I'm just going to call this T for top of the cross. Then find the height of the building, which we can use this triangle. Then the very last question it says is find the height of the cross by itself, okay? So we're going to be finding the height of the building, which we can use this drawing right here. We're going to find the height to the top of the cross, which we can use this drawing right here. Then if we want to find just the cross by itself, we can take the height all the way from the top of the cross and then subtract off the height of the building. Okay, so here's a picture of them combined together. This is two separate pictures here. So here, if I'm standing at this angle, side opposite of me, adjacent to me, opposite and adjacent, tangent. So I can say tangent of 38 degrees is the building over 120 feet. Again, if you put that over 1, you just see you need to multiply 120 feet to the other side to solve for B, okay? So B equals tangent of 38 degrees times 120 feet. Basically, see, I'm just multiplying 120 feet to both sides. That cancels that out over there. And then instead of doing multiple steps, I'm just going to go straight from here to the answer. Tangent of 38 degrees is 0.7813. Then multiplying that by 120, 93.75, and my units are feet. So the building is 93.7 feet, 75 feet. Okay, now let's go to here for the top of the cross. How tall is it to the top of the cross? Still, we're using tangent, opposite, adjacent. So tangent 43 degrees is the height to the top of the cross over adjacent. If I multiply 120 to both sides, that cancels over there. So then the top of the cross is tangent of 43 degrees times 120 feet. So tangent of 43 degrees is 0.9325. Multiplying that by 120. The height to the top of the cross is 111.90 feet. You always want to make sure your answers make sense. The height to the top of the cross should be taller than the building, and it is. Okay, how do we find just the height of the cross? Okay, the height of the cross, I'm just going to call it C, would be the height to the top of the cross minus the height of the building. Okay, so that will just tell me just the height of the cross, because I need to subtract off that height right there to find the height of the cross. Okay, because I have all the way to the top of the cross, subtract off that height, and that will give me the height of the cross all by itself. So basically 111.90 feet minus 93.75 feet. So the height of the cross is about 18.15 feet.